are you today? And thanks for joining us. I'm Nina Delgadillo. I'm the Director of Safety at DPREP. I joined the team about a year ago. Prior to that time, I was a federal agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Was an investigator throughout my career, as well as the Congressional and Media Affairs representative for the last 6 years of my career there. And so I had many occasions to engage with communities, educators, law enforcement, and all the allied agencies. From there, I went into school safety, and I ran a team for a large metropolitan city that had about 77 school sites, and ran a team of civilians and sworn personnel. And from there, I went into risk safety. And then from there, I came to DPREP for the last year. So I'm so happy to be here to join you today and look forward to engaging.
Jennifer, can I put you on the spot? I know it's like finals week there. You're just out of finals week. One of the two, right?
Just out. Jennifer Adams. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs at SUNY Polytechnic Institute in upstate New York. Most of my career has been in residential life. I've been the director at 4 different institutions, and I've been at SUNY Poly I'm starting my 13th year. And I oversee several areas here, but the main one and the reason that I'm joining you today is as chair of the care team. We were a behavioral intervention team when I started at SUNY Poly in 2011. I went to some of Brian's sessions over the years, and I really latched on to what it would mean to expand into a more comprehensive care team. I think we've done a really nice job of that here, and I believe that your care team is only as good as the number of people who know about it. So we work very hard to make sure that everyone on campus knows who we are and what we do, but also that we kind of appeal to each of our constituents in a different way to reach them. And we've definitely learned that different constituents are reached in different ways. I think that's it. I'll leave anything else about how we market to the actual program, but really excited to be here and talk about, I think our campus has a very good awareness of what our care team does. And how to get to us.
So let's introduce myself a little bit here. So my name is Brian Van Brunt. I've done a good amount of work in this space just related to developing and building these teams. So as always, in the resource section attached to this program, we'll put some, probably more than other programs, we'll put some great links to some programs that we've worked with before, helped develop, talk about, and give you some really good practical examples. I would say, again, just let me do the intro first. So for me, I've been doing this work for close to 20 years in the BIT space, teaching really teams across the country how to not only advertise and market their team, to get reports coming in, but what to do with them when they do arrive. So today's program will focus on some of the lessons that we've learned over time, building out these marketing programs. So hopefully it'll be a nice overview for you. I would say more than any other program we've ever done, having a piece of paper and a pen next to you to make a list would be really important, just to keep track of some of the resources that we're going to point you towards. Bethany, if you can, we had a couple schools that we are going to show you some examples of. I think also Jennifer's care team at SUNY Poly, if we can put links in the chat. So here's our program. Our emails are here. I went with the old Sacramento picture for you there. Jennifer did the flyby overview, and good old New Orleans for Brian. So one of the first things I'll start with is going to be this idea of having, and this is why I mentioned a list, having a good collection of different programs, different approaches, and different pieces that we want to kind of lean into. I think much of this should be seen as modular, if that makes sense. And then Jennifer, I'm going to kind of lean into you on this one because you've built out some of this with the care team. I really like the distinction of what we're calling the team. And one of the things we'll mention right up front that evokes a sense of wanting to talk to the team. So if your team has a silly name, a scary name, or something, is being able to have people feel comfortable enough to share a concern with the team.
We did switch from acronym BIT, Behavioral Intervention Team, to CARE, and our CARE is no acronym. Some institutions do choose to make that an acronym. Ours is CARE with a capital C-A-R-E. And we just wanted to invoke that we were really here because we cared about students, and that kind of no matter the obstacle, our role was to help you figure out either how to navigate it or how to minimize the consequences of whatever was was happening. That's been a really positive shift for us. We really want to talk about, and we talk about with parents and all of our students, many things are preventable if we first meet students when they're first starting to feel disconnected from the institution and like no one cares about them. And when you look at people who commit mass violence, they're often say, no one cared about me or what happened. So we felt like the name change really invoked that sense that what we're there for is to care about you. And we really try to use that terminology when we talk with students, whether they really have kind of done something that's pretty disruptive or it's just a minor issue, that we care about them at the end of the day, no matter what.
I mean, it makes me think a little bit in that law enforcement space, Nina, around the challenges sometimes around like community policing models or how we market and talk about, especially with like the See Something, Say Something campaign after 9/11. We understood from the law enforcement communities that having better intel early around concerns, having people feel comfortable calling in a concern, seeing something, saying something, led to better prevention. And as Jennifer's saying, what we see a lot in the reports, in the federal reports, are folks saying start early, start before it's this catastrophic problem of threat of, someone's going to kill themselves or they're so angry at the professor, they're going to burn down the school. You want to start as early as possible, identifying the behavior and then being able to intervene. So I guess, Nina, if there's a question here from me, it's around, maybe some of the thoughts or challenges you've had in the law enforcement space of kind of leaning into that community education piece that we are, I'm certain in the ATF, people think about that. It's typically the higher end federal, response on big cases. But the flip side is the encouragement, the education, the wanting to have some information, the working collaboratively with community members, schools and the like is critical. Yeah.
Right. So really, I've been at both ends of the spectrum as far as, being from the law enforcement side where, we deal with the community daily, we serve the public. And so transparency and getting the message out to the public on how you can remain safe. What are some preemptive measures, preventative actions that you can take in safety is really important, as well as transparency of what your plans, are, how you function as a team, what your focus is, what your mission is for your colleges. And we talked about communities. And then when I went into education, I brought that over into the education space, where it's really important that people understand what your college is doing, what your administration is doing, as far as transparency, to have programs that address threat assessment. Right? What you're doing to keep students and staff and communities around your institutions safe. And so it's really the same that we had in law enforcement, that having programs like See Something, Say Something, have a BIT team or a care team is really important, but it's also important to educate the public on what you are doing. It's showing them that you're empowering them with tools, because it's one thing to say, we're here to keep you safe. This is what we do. But what we want to do is empower our students and faculty and community to know that they can handle certain situations and what is the process by which they will handle situations. And therefore, you go to your BIT team, your care team or your BIT team to say, what matters is that you're going through the process and you're explaining to people that you're moving towards that goal of creating these teams, so that you can serve your communities.
We'll show you some examples in a moment, but I thought just while the three of us were on the screen, we could talk in general about, I have like kind of a punch list of some of the things that we think are important related to marketing and advertising. And I kind of mentioned making a list. One of the first things I'd put on the list, and I kind of mentioned this from a modular standpoint, if I were starting fresh with a team, one of the first things that I would do would be to create a one-page Word document that describes something akin to the mission, what we want people to feel comfortable sharing with us. I think even report can be a little heavy-handed, like it feels like, because again, you're thinking about what are the barriers for individuals to share things with the team. And when I think about barriers on campus, one of the things might be people are like, well, I could share this, but is it really worth their time? And when we use something like a report or an incident report, it can have a chilling effect on people's willingness to share information in. And Jennifer, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't know if you have any examples or times where, in your experience with your care team, where someone a case eventually gets to you, but you've picked up on those things where they say, well, I was going to share this earlier, but I didn't think it was that important. And you're like, it was that important. I wish you did. This would have been a better case for us to intervene if we had just known earlier. I don't know if anything comes to mind.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned the report terminology, because I jotted that down to mention that when you talk about creating a path to information, report is very off-putting to faculty and students. It's almost like when a RA uses the terminology, you're going to get written up. It doesn't feel good, and it just invokes sort of more of a feeling of this report will result in you getting in trouble or having a hassle. We changed everything everywhere to referral. It is a referral form. We talk about receiving referrals. When I outreach to students, I say, as chair of the care team, I received a referral from your faculty member. That makes the faculty member feel better and the person who's receiving the outreach. So I think that's really important. I'm glad that you mentioned that looking at that kind of terminology. And we're just constantly clarifying our role. We talk often about the care team being a dashboard for the student, that we don't necessarily reach out to every single student who's missing class or choosing not to attend. But if we find out that a student is not attending class and add it to the dashboard of, we also know they're not eating in the dining hall ever. When we look at their card access, their patterns don't look like what you would expect of a college student. There's also a note from Residential Life for referral for a disruption with a roommate. That's why, we will take everything we can get. Tell us everything. We do try to clarify for people that it doesn't necessarily mean we outreach every time. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going and pulling them out of class or out of their residence hall room, unless there's everything we've gotten on the dashboard says, flashing lights of concern, this student needs a more aggressive approach. So, and this fall, we will be I think this is a constant process. By saying, please send us everything, now we have a lot of faculty and students who believe we do academic advising, who believe that we ask faculty to make accommodations. So this fall, a lot of our marketing will be about the care team does not do academic advising, and we do not have the capacity to ask faculty members to make adjustments to academic policy or grades. That's the important next step of marketing us to our campus. So I think you're just constantly looking for what is the feedback you're getting that says people understand what you do, and what is the feedback you're getting that says maybe we need to revamp a little messaging.
I think that's a great comment about reporting. Sometimes reporting has a kind of a law enforcement or a negative connotation to it. So I've also used the term briefing, where you brief people about a situation, because it seems more transparent when we're rather than reporting. So that's another possibility. The other thing is being able to work across departmental lines is really so important. Like you said, Jennifer, you don't have the ability to do some of the things like in academics, or even let's say it involves financial aid too, and that's part of the issue of what's happening with a person, what you're able to do. But having the ability to understand that people from different departments need to be part of this process, because each of them has a different responsibility to the college and a different responsibility that they have access to. So in your team, you might not have necessarily all the same accesses as other departments, but making sure that we're all not working in silos, but we're working together to be able to provide best services.
Yeah, I think well said. And it's one of those things that language matters. We're talking with folks too. And Jennifer, was hearing you say is almost like this nurturing of the referral source as well. Like, while it's sometimes frustrating for teams, certainly with the volume of reports coming in, at least one frame to look at this is it's nice that the care team at SUNY Poly is so well received that it's now being overused. It's like, if they're calling you on academic referrals, if they're calling you and passing forward concerns around like advising requests or accommodations, they're certainly going to talk to someone on your team when the higher end stuff hits, like a suicidal student or a threat that's made in the classroom. So while it's, I think, frustrating from an administrative volume standpoint, it's really helpful, and it's a metric that tells you your team's working. So let me show you a couple examples of some teams. There's some in the chat for you already, but I had the opportunity to work with Arkansas Tech. So they brought me in early on to have this discussion of kind of creating a care team. And for those of you who know me, know I'm very into mascots and animals, and they had this great, and Jerry became in many ways the face of their team. So they've named their team Jerry Cares. Jerry is in a lot of the marketing. You see the colors throughout the website, the way they kind of lean into this, and people liked Jerry, and they also liked sharing things with the team. So it was one way to, I think, manage when you're thinking about your team name and how you're going to be pulling information from the community through sharing of concerns, making sure that that's done in a way where it's the community. When we call our team something scary, the Batman Tactical Response Unit, it has a negative chilling effect. People are going to say, well, even threat assessment, people are going to be like, well, there wasn't really a threat. We need to be aware that the whole goal of our team name is to make the community comfortable sharing things with us. And I think when you have that lens, it can be really useful. This was part of CSU's team at Columbus State in Georgia. I like the cleanness of this. One of the points I'll make here, having a website that is written specifically to the audience that you're trying to market to, and that's reading it. So one of the mistakes is people take their policy and procedure manual, their ad copy. So we want to make sure that it's written in a way that if you're a student, a parent, a faculty member, that they can come to the site and be able to share that concern forward. One of the schools I've worked with has their reporting structure, a form for the care team, only available with a student ID or a faculty staff ID. One of the downsides of that for me, and then we're limiting who can share those concerns. I get it's easier on the data end to be able to track these things, but a little harder.
Yeah, we'll take a report however we can get it. Our form is public. You could submit it anonymously. We tell people what the downsides are of submitting an anonymous report in any training that we do. We will still take it. I think that's really important, and a locked down form would.
Yeah, and that's best practice. That's what the government's saying. That's what federal agencies are saying. Take anonymous reports. They're not, I think what we fear they're going to be, that everyone starts getting out and like messing with their roommate and sharing things. They just don't result in that level of over-reporting, I think, is one of the things. We want to give you a bit of a list before we kind of break for question and answers, just about the kind of ways that you should be thinking about sharing information about your team with the community. Before I do that, just kind of pause, check in with Nina, see if anything you wanted to add based on what we've been chatting about.
No, one of the things that just came to mind when Jennifer was talking was sometimes we that are working in the threat assessment world will read a document a different way than maybe some people that don't work in the field all the time. And so having somebody that's maybe from a different department, being able to look at that and just kind of saying, well, you know what, how do you mean this? Or what exactly do you mean by this? We kind of take it for granted that people all know that we're speaking the same language, but really some of our audience don't speak that same language. How do we become more inclusive is what I'm saying. So being able to have somebody with some fresh eyes, and we do this on our team all the time. We have subject matter experts, but we bring it out to the team so that we all take a look at it from different perspectives and can add or comments on things to just make the best product we can so that it really is accessible and it's received by the people that we want it to convey the information to.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's spot on in terms of what we want to see. I would also add that there's times where I think we do things that are more convenient for us, but end up having, again, that chilling effect on the information sharing. Another one of those is having the reporting form blocked or hidden from public view. The other thing is having a reporting form. I see this as related to the marketing because it stops people from sharing things with the team. Having so many required fields that are useful for the team, like an ID number, a date, who you are, having to fill out a name, that then precludes them from finishing the form. So I think it's something we talked about in a previous program on growth and failure, team developments. But one of the things is to not fall into this trap of saying, we have all these reports, everything's working fine, we don't have to do anything different. There should be at some point, maybe at the end of the semester, a reflection on marketing and advertising saying, while we're getting a lot of reports, what are we missing? So I think there's this issue as well that while there might be a lot of volume coming, is there more volume out there that we're not hearing about? And that's a concern too. And Jennifer, maybe this is a question for you. When you think about reports, are there patterns that you see? Are there maybe barriers? You should be getting reports on a certain area, but they're not coming in. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I love that comment because we look for the patterns and we figure out what office we could partner with to address the pattern. So it helps instill trust in us with the office in particular, like, wow, you want to help us with those calls, but it also gets us to students where there are those patterns. So One of the places we've started to do that is we would see a lot of students in serious distress at opening time, and we noticed that many of them were students with unpaid bills. So we now will send a message out after the, hey, pay your bill or you can't come, email goes out. That's very businesslike, tells them exactly what the implications are. That's how our bursar's office needs to operate. But they get a follow-up email from us that says, very generically, we've been alerted by the Office of Student Accounts that there is an outstanding matter with your account. And while we don't know what that is, we want to offer our awareness that sometimes these things have multiple levels of challenges preventing you from paying and registering. So if we can help, please give us a call. And when they get an email like that, they're more likely to engage with someone who's saying, I understand there's more to your unpaid bill than probably just you don't have the money. And they're more likely to come talk to us about that. And we've cut down on that pattern. I think our next one similarly is going to be the patterns we're seeing in the summer when students find out they're on financial aid suspension or they've been put on academic dismissal. We're going to do outreach. Our care team is notified whenever a student is put on academic dismissal. Can we help you if you plan to submit an appeal? We can't influence the process, but we could support you in writing your appeal, or creates a lot less. And for us in the long run, trying to manage a student who's emailing an academic advisor from Baltimore that, hey, I'm going to harm myself because I just got this email from the college and I'm really upset. We've already built in somebody for them to go to talk about being upset about being academically dismissed. So I think the patterns and looking for the patterns can really help your team do more outreach.
Jennifer, I think that's wonderful. I mean, we've learned of situations where colleges or students are having some issues with financial support, and they don't know how to handle it because many times these students come in and they're freshmen. They've never had to handle money. And now all of a sudden they're away from their structure system, their mom and dad and whomever else they have in their lives that financially support them. And they don't know how to articulate, hey, I'm struggling with this. So love that SUNY Poly is taking that position, that they're recognizing these are different events that can trigger some behaviors in students. And how do we get in front of that? Because that's why we're talking about this. We talk about threat assessment and mitigation. That's perfect. I love it.
Yeah, it's helped us really educate some people that while a student may look like they have 100% expected family contribution, they may be estranged from the parent that is putting that number on their aid account, and they may refuse to be paying anything for their college. Sometimes our students are kind of blackmailed into getting their parents' support to pay for college, and they don't want to talk to the bursar that they owe $20,000 to about that, but they might talk to a care team case manager about it, and we can help them figure out how to navigate it. If one of our local agencies could help them pay for college that doesn't have parameters on EFC. So it's been really helpful on multiple levels.
When we think about building marketing and advertising approach, first of all, you should see it as something that is built over time. You don't want to try to do everything at once. Having a website, I think, is critical. If for some reason your website for care, BIT, and threat reports is behind a firewall or isn't publicly available, please do this right now. Go to your college website, go to your search engine and type in things like suicidal student, disruptive student, care team, BIT team, and see what comes up. Because sometimes what comes up is a paper someone wrote in 1986 about suicide. So make sure your search engine is optimized and that people can get to even just a simple FAQ website describing this. Having handouts and flyers talking about things like what to do with disruptive behavior, educational materials, having a PowerPoint, having a way to with the community about what your team does. Jennifer, I think you were part of the program we had, at least initially. What do you do in terms of those conversations with your community?
Well, sometimes a PowerPoint works depending on audience. I think it's so critical to know your audience. And eventually everything has this product life cycle. So I adjunct for the College of Business. So if anyone is a business person, this might resonate. Our campus got tired of hearing about the care team. We immediately started repackaging. When we do presentations now, it either doesn't say care team at all, or it's like a little byline brought to you by the care team. Every spring break, we do professional development workshops brought to you by the care team. We do an orientation session for all incoming first-year students We make it really fun. We try to tie it into something. We did Stranger Things this fall, which we thought they would love, but apparently no 18-year-olds are actually watching Stranger Things, but they appreciated our cheesiness. So it was Stranger Things themed. It had a title that was just about what is your support network in college? It was done by myself and the case manager. We got in front of every single first year student. They don't want to see a PowerPoint. So it was a lot of activity. We had music. We had the theme song from Stranger Things. We had t-shirts. It was all done by the care team, but we never packaged it that way for students. And what students remember is talk to us, not necessarily to talk to the care team, which has been a huge asset. When we meet with faculty, they want a PowerPoint. Faculty want to see that we're using researched threat assessment tools. Like they love that. They want to ask questions about whether it's pathways or the risk rubric. They want to know, like, where does that come from and how is it backed up and when was it last updated? We share pathways with them. We show them what it looks like. So I think knowing your audience, some audiences don't want to see a PowerPoint. Some audiences need a fun, funky title that has nothing to do with BIT or care team. Whatever gets you in front of them and helps them remember it is really the key with the marketing and the presentations.
I think you hit it spot on again, Jennifer. I mean, part of the rules when you engage with the public, any of the public, whether you're students or parents or faculty, is meeting them where they get it. Knowing your audience. That's so important in public speaking, in public presentation, in relating to communities and students, is knowing where to meet them, because everybody isn't the same. Every interest isn't the same. Every understanding isn't the same. And so understanding who your audience is and how to tailor the information that you have to that specific audience is what's going to be a win. And so it's something that I've learned over the years, especially in law enforcement and in education, is understanding where they ask me to do a presentation, I'll say, who is my audience? Because that's who I need to tailor it to. Because what I'm going to tailor to staff and administrators is different what I'm going to tailor to community members and other stakeholders in organizations in mental health in the community. Their interests and their buy-in is going to be different from administrators and my faculty members. So great mention there.
When we meet with families, we meet with all families as part of orientation, accepted student. They've now included us in accepted student day in front of families. 20% of the time I talk about what care team is to their students, because of course they want to know that. But the reality is they really want to know how care team helps them as parents. So we talk about their access to the care team as parents and families, what they're really looking for when you're selling why your campus is different and why your care team really matters is they're like, oh, financial is telling me they can't talk to me, but care team said they could take any information I would ever give them, which is what I tell them. I can't always offer you something, but I am always glad to receive information from you. And the families walk away feeling like, oh, care team's really for me as a parent, which, we're not. 80% of our time is serving students, not the other way around. And appealing to the audience, what your care team or BIT team does is really important.
Jennifer mentioned her business background. And I think leaning into care team members' expertise in business, marketing, graphic design, film production, everything doesn't need to be an expensive outsourced thing with like a consultant. A lot of this can be done in-house, just leaning into the resources that are there.
Sure. So really, when we look about marketing, it's like we market DPREP. We are very client focused. So there isn't a one-stop shopping. It's going to be like, if this is the product, here it is. This is what we offer. That is not how we operate. We look at who the client is, what their needs are, what they would like to have from us, how we can empower them best. And it's going to be different in Sacramento, California, than it is in Biloxi, Mississippi, than it is in upstate New York, than it is in northern part of Tennessee. It's all going to be completely different. Now, the core things are going to be the same, but how you present it and how you work with the client is what changes it. And with you, your clients are your students, your staff, your community, your educators, and knowing how to deal with each of those people based on what their expectations and needs are, but still having the overarching mission be the same. I wish you the best. I hope that what we've presented today is going to be useful, and definitely love to hear your questions.
Yeah, you just gave me my chance to showcase one of my greatest achievements this year. So I had been at a session, something about fit and care teams, and one of my biggest challenges has been how to tell adjunct faculty about care team. And we have many adjunct faculty at SUNY Poly, and they don't use their SUNY Poly email. They don't. And they rarely come here. A lot of times when they come here, it's just at night to shoot in, and that's it. So I had been at a session and somebody recommended put a care team sign in classroom. Well, there's 1,000 classrooms, but it was the only solution I had. And when I went to talk to our director of media services, who has been at SUNY Poly for 35 years, he said, Jen, what if you put a mouse pad on all the teaching stations? And by the way, the mouse pads everywhere on campus are garbage. Why don't you put that? So every computer station at SUNY Poly, computer labs, teaching labs, student 24-hour labs, has a new mouse pad, and it has a QR code to the form. And people see these all the time. But so the moral of my story is get mouse pads. But also, it's sometimes really surprising who could give you a great idea. So when you're at the start of meetings, the end of meetings with obscure people, a front desk person in financial aid, someone in your K through 12 attendance office, ask them what you know about our team and where would you look? And you are sometimes, my lesson learned is I'm sometimes really surprised at the great ideas I get from people that need to know about us and probably wouldn't in the ways that I'm currently using.